Rick Harrison was the expert you trusted for years and the charismatic star of Pawn Stars who built an empire on knowledge, honesty, and trust. But what if everything you thought you knew was a carefully constructed lie? In the early hours of April 2025, FBI agents swarmed Rick Harrison's Las Vegas mansion. The world was about to discover a shocking truth that would destroy the image of one of TV's most beloved personalities. This is what the agents found. It wasn't just financial fraud that was found behind those walls, it was also the control center of a global criminal network that stretched across continents. This isn't just speculation or clickbait, it's the disturbing truth that we are seeing play out right in front of our eyes. The man who taught Americans about history and antiques had a secret history that included trafficking people, laundering money, and having ties to organized crime. The question isn't how he did it, but how he hid it for so long. The investigation that showed one of the shadiest double lives in TV history was shown to millions of people every week for over a decade. Harrison's straightforward personality, extensive knowledge of historical items, and supposedly honest business practices made him a household name. The Gold and Silver Pawn Shop became not only a successful business but also a tourist attraction, with fans from all over the world wanting to see the place they'd seen on TV. His rise to fame seemed like the perfect example of an American success story. He started from nothing and built something great, and his personality and skills made him famous around the world. His books were bestsellers, he had a lot of fans, and people looking for business advice went to him. He seemed like the real deal. But behind this carefully crafted public image, something troubling was happening. The change didn't happen all at once, and people close to Harrison started noticing small signs. Around 2016, Rick's behavior changed. He became more secretive and controlling. The once calm work environment at the pawn shop became tense, and employees had to sign stricter non-disclosure agreements. Rick spent less time on the shop floor and more time in private meetings and interviews. The change was clear. His natural charm seemed more calculated, and his friendly demeanor seemed more practiced. At the time, these changes were thought to be caused by the stresses of fame and running a business empire were the first visible cracks in a facade that was beginning to fall apart. He wasn't the same person anymore, says a former employee who worked at the pawn shop for 6 years. There was always this tension, like he was constantly watching over his shoulder. The old Rick would talk to everyone and spend hours looking at interesting items that came into the shop, but the new Rick was distant and always on his phone with. People would often refuse to meet him unless there were cameras around, but no one knew at the time that Rick Harrison was living a double life that used his fame and respectability to hide activities that his fans would have found unimaginable. An FBI investigation has shown that Harrison wasn't just a pawn shop owner with a TV show. He was the mastermind behind a complex web of criminal enterprises. When federal agents executed their search warrant on, they found much more disturbing evidence than anyone could have imagined under Harrison's huge Las Vegas estate. There was a sophisticated command center with surveillance equipment, multiple encrypted hard drives, and even a holding cell that looked like it had been used recently. Documents taken from the residence described international payments, shell companies, and coded communications that pointed to a criminal operation that went far beyond American borders. The agents Those who took part in the raid described a scene that seemed more appropriate for a crime boss than a TV personality. The basement of Harrison's mansion had been turned into what investigators called a operational hub, complete with multiple computer stations, secure communication equipment, and walls covered with maps showing locations around the world. There were also several passports with Harrison's photo on them, indicating that he traveled internationally under different names. What was perhaps most disturbing was there was a locked room with reinforced doors, no interior handles, and signs of recent occupancy that suggested it had been used to hold people against their will. Harrison's hidden empire's finances are incredibly complicated. Investigators have found at least 17 different limited liability companies linked to him, spread across 6 states and 3 foreign countries. Many of these companies only exist on paper, with no employees and registered addresses that don't exist. Their clear goal was to hide the flow of money and resources. In just 16 months, about $3.4 million went through accounts linked to these fake companies that were connected to industries that traffic people and launder money. The transactions followed patterns that matched known criminal groups using Harrison's legitimate business interests as a front for their illegal activities. The pawn shop that America loved wasn't just selling antiques and collectibles, it was also. The level of complexity in this case is what makes it stand out, says Sarah Layton, a former FBI financial crime specialist. We often see criminal organizations using legitimate businesses as fronts, she says. But this level of sophistication and someone so publicly visible at the center are things that make this case unique. Harrison didn't just set up a few shell companies, he created a whole shadow financial system that worked alongside his public business interests. Compartmentalization shows that the person knew exactly how to hide money from the police. But Harrison's financial crimes were just the start. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery was evidence linking him to human trafficking operations. FBI agents found encrypted hard drives with spreadsheets and communication threads that showed how people were moved across borders. These weren't just business transactions, they were records of people being exploited, and Harrison was thought to have played a central role. Harrison's wealth and fame made it easy for him to move between legitimate business circles and criminal enterprises, which made it easier for him to plan these activities. His network included well-known criminals, such as Eduardo Aloma Ramirez, who is thought to be the leader of a human trafficking route from Baja California to Nevada. Many of the victims of these operations have not been identified, but investigators think that many were. People from poor areas were told they could find legal work in the U.S., but when they got here, their documents were taken away and they were forced to work or be sexually exploited. The FBI has set up a task force to find and help these victims, many of whom may still be in dangerous situations across the country. The fact that the case involves people helping others has made the investigation more urgent, and agents are working around the clock to break it down. It's shocking how far Harrison's network reached around the world. Transactions tracked by the FBI connected his fake companies to operations in Prague, Bangkok, and Tana, making a web that crossed continents. Each transaction was carefully disguised, often going through several middlemen before it reached its final destination. Communications found on Harrison's devices used coded language and encrypted channels, showing a level of sophistication that shows years of careful planning. And execution. This wasn't an amateur operation or a businessman who made a few bad choices. Harrison was at the center of a well-planned criminal enterprise. The international connections have made the investigation more difficult, requiring law enforcement agencies from many countries to work together. Sources close to the investigation suggest that Harrison may have used his fame to make connections with corrupt officials in some areas, making his illegal activities even easier. Since these new details came out, Harrison's frequent international travel, supposedly for antique hunting or business growth, is being looked at again. Each trip could be another link in a chain of crimes that went around the world. Investigators and the public are still wondering how someone so well-known could have hidden these crimes for so long. Part of the answer lies in Harrison's careful maintenance of his public image as a TV personality, where he presented himself as knowledgeable, honest, and The show Pawn Stars made him look like an expert on historical artifacts and someone who put authenticity above all else. This carefully crafted persona created a shield of credibility that made the accusations against him seem unbelievable. Who would think that a man who entered millions of homes every week through their TV screens could be involved in such major crimes? This is the perfect example of hiding in plain sight, says criminologist Dr. Vanessa Chin Harrison. Harrison created such a strong public image of honesty and expertise that it effectively hid his other activities. People are naturally resistant to contradictions in their established beliefs. If you know someone is honest because you've watched them on TV for years, you'll ignore evidence to the contrary. Harrison masterfully took advantage of this psychological tendency. The fallout from these revelations was immediate and far-reaching. The History Channel suspended Pawn Stars indefinitely as the investigation continues, the future of the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which used to be a popular tourist spot, is uncertain. Fans have expressed shock and disbelief on social media, unable to make sense of the Rick Harrison they thought they knew and the man at the center of these allegations. Beyond the shock, there are larger implications for the entertainment industry and reality TV. As the legal process unfolds, Harrison may be hiding similar dark secrets behind carefully managed public personas. Harrison is being charged with money laundering, human trafficking, and conspiracy. If found guilty, these charges could lead to a long prison sentence. Federal authorities are determined to shut down not only Harrison's personal operations but also the whole network he is said to have helped build and run. This case has quickly gained national attention, with lawyers weighing in on what the possible outcomes might be and what they mean for future investigations involving people who worked closely with Harrison over the years. Former employees have had to painfully re-evaluate their experiences. They now look back on his increasing secrecy and changes in behavior with a new understanding. Interactions that seemed normal at the time now seem suspicious. The non-disclosure agreements that got stricter over time, the private meetings, and his gradual pullback from public-facing parts of the business all now seem like puzzle pieces that no one saw until it was too late. There were times when things didn't make sense, admits a former employee. A member of the production crew who worked on Pawn Stars for several seasons said, "We just chalked it up to celebrity idiocy when he suddenly cancelled filming days with no explanation or when certain areas of the property were suddenly off limits to the crew. Now I wonder what was really going on those days and who was coming and going when the cameras weren't there." The investigation is still ongoing and new information is coming out all the time. Federal agents are still trying to figure out Harrison's entire network. Accompanies and untangling the complicated web of financial transactions that supported these operations. While a lot is still unknown, what has been revealed paints a disturbing picture of massive deception. The man who built his reputation on being honest and open seems to have been living a life full of secrecy and taking advantage of others. As this story continues to develop, it serves as a powerful reminder that looks can be deceiving in a time when media stars let us into their lives and businesses. Rick Harrison let millions of people into his pawn shop, shared his knowledge, and built a relationship with them. That relationship was based on trust that what we were seeing was true. The accusations against Harrison break that trust and make us think about how well we can really know the public figures we let into our homes. This isn't just about one man or one TV show, it's about the masks we all wear and the fronts we put up, it's about the gap between public and private life. Most importantly, it's about the people who may have been hurt while a criminal network operated behind the mask of fame and respectability. As we follow this case, let's remember that behind the shocking headlines are real people whose lives have been forever changed by these events. The truth is still coming out, but one thing is for sure, the Rick Harrison story will go down in history as one of the most shocking falls from grace in TV history. As the investigation goes on, we learn more about how deep this darkness goes for Rick Harrison. The game of chess is over mirrors, and the consequences are just beginning. If this story teaches us anything, it's that we need to look past the carefully curated images that are shown to us and question what lies beneath. In a world where personal brands and curated social media presences are becoming more common, the line between authenticity and performance grows. Every day, whenever you think you know a famous person, think of Rick Harrison. America thought it knew him until the FBI showed up at his door and told him the shocking truth. The most valuable things in his collection weren't the historical artifacts he showed off on TV, they were the secrets he kept from everyone. Now that those secrets are coming to light, we're all left to wonder, if we were so wrong about someone we watched for years, what else might we be missing? More news about this story as it develops.